Hello all! If you're watching this video, then you're probably interested in learning how to take a web page layout developed in Photoshop and transfer it over into DreamWeaver in order to make it a live site. In order to do this, I've already created a mock-up design for a web page in order to show you how to transfer it over into DreamWeaver. While I've done a background, a banner, a logo, a title, and some information for the page, I haven't included some essential items that are needed for a web page yet. Mainly, the one thing that I wanted to show you how to design first before transferring this over into DreamWeaver is how to create a menu. Quite a few websites have menus in order to navigate in between different pages available on that web page. I want to show you how to do the same thing. First, what I'm going to do is create a new layer. I already have quite a few down here, as you can see, that contain different elements of the web page itself, but I need to create another one in order to add the menu onto this. So I'm going to go up to Layer, New, Layer, and I'm going to title this one Menu. Don't need to change any settings that you have, just click OK. In order to create this menu, what I'm going to do is create a text box at the top of the page. You can create your menu anywhere on the web page that you like, whether you wanted it above the banner, below, on the bottom of the page, to the side, whatever you would like to do. I'm going to create mine at the top of the page because that's where I think it looks best. So I'm going to go ahead and select the text tool in the toolbar on the left hand side of the screen and just create a text box on the top of the page. About like that. What I'm going to type in is the different tabs that I'll need for this navigation. I'm going to change the font to a fairly small font so that I'll be able to make sure that all of my tabs get in there. So I'm going to start with a size 14 font. And what I'm going to do is type in the first tab that I want to navigate, which is Home. After that, I'm going to follow that with 3 spaces. That way, it'll provide an adequate amount of space in between each of the words. And I'm going to continue doing this with the About page that will provide information about the web page, as well as the different services that are going to be offered. So after About, I'm going to put in 3 more spaces, and then type in Alignment. After Alignment, 3 more spaces, and I'm going to type in Proximity. And I'm going to keep doing this throughout the services that I provide. There, I have all of the key elements that I want to have in my navigation bar. What I'm going to do is resize this now in order to fit the top of the screen. So I'm just going to highlight this text and I'm going to change the font. I'm going to start with maybe a 30-point font in order to see how that fits. The only change I think I'm going to make is actually to make the text just a little bit more condensed in order to fit in here better. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the text. Then I'm going to do a condensed. And it shrunk up quite a bit, but I want to make sure that it fits well at the top, so that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to 36-point font, and that actually looks just about perfect for our needs. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Select tool so that I can reposition this the way that I want on the top of the page until I figure out where I want it exactly. And that looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. When you are working on your own web page, of course, you can adjust it to how you would like it. In this case, I'm going to leave it here because for the purposes of this tutorial, this looks fine. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some design elements to this in order to make it stand out just a little bit more. So on my layers, I'm going to right-click Menu, then I'm going to click Blending Options. And this will allow me to play around with some design features that I can use for this particular menu bar. So I'm just going to try some different options that maybe might be able to work. So I'm going to go ahead and try the inner shadow, and I don't really like that too much. I think it makes it a little dark. So let's try the inner glow. I like the effect that the inner glow gives. It makes it just a little bit more prominent and makes it stand out just a little bit more. So I'm also going to try the bevel and emboss. And that adds a little bit of texture as well, so I think I like that. This way, the menu bar stands out from the rest of the text on the page, so it's distinctly different. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this as it is. So the first thing that I need to do is click on File and Save As. And I'm just going to save this as webpage sample.psd, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop for now. And I titled it webpage sample because it is just a sample of a web page that I'm giving to you. However, you can change it to the name that you want for your website. So I'm just going to go ahead and click save. And then if the maximize compatibility comes up, just click OK. So you have your design layout saved and ready to be uploaded into DreamWeaver. So the first thing that we're going to do in order to get it ready for DreamWeaver is splice the separate text on the page in order to make it ready to upload. On the left-hand side in the toolbox, we'll be clicking on the Splice tool. And the Splice tool is this icon that looks kind of like an X-Acto knife, if you're familiar with that, and it's essentially going to do that same thing. It's going to splice apart the different text on the page. So I'm going to splice each section of text differently. So for example, once you have the splice tool selected, go ahead and splice the banner. So all you have to do is left click and then drag the box around what text you want to be spliced. So I'm going to say that's good, so I'm just going to let off, and you can see that this is now in its own box, and there's this symbol up here, and that's perfect. That's exactly what we need. I'm next going to highlight this information down here with the splice tool just to break it up a little bit. That's good. So I now have those two different bodies of text spliced. What I'm going to do next is splice up the menu. However, this is going to be a little bit different than the rest of the page. The reason is because that these each need to be individual buttons in order to be pressed. And in order to do that, they need to be spliced separately rather than together. So what we're going to do is just take the splice tool and go around each individual word on the top of the page. So just take your splice tool and go around each word, and it doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be in the general area. So I'm just going to finish up the last two here. Okay, and that's all we need to do for splicing. What we're going to do next is save this for the web page. So at the top of the page under File, click Save for Web. And this way it'll place the document where it needs to be in order to be imported into DreamWeaver safely. So none of these settings need to be changed. We're just going to click Save. What I want to do is click on my desktop first, and I'm going to create a new folder. And I'm just going to leave it untitled folder. That way I have a space to store all of this information. When my save screen comes up, I'm just going to change the save as to index. That way it'll be the root folder or the root file for the web page. And then of course I'm just going to go to my desktop and save it to the folder that I just created. Make sure under format that you do save HTML and images so that all of your information will be there where it needs to be. So once you've done that, just go ahead and click save. And you're good to go on that. I'm going to go ahead and minimize Photoshop, and next I'm going to open up DreamWeaver. If you don't have DreamWeaver, another coding source will work, but this is the program that I prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and open up DreamWeaver. On this welcome screen, under Create, I'm just going to go to Open. And I'm going to open that index file that I just saved. So I'm in the untitled folder on my desktop that I just created, and I'm going to double click this index.html to open this up in DreamWeaver. And as you can see, this brings up the web page layout that you worked on in Photoshop. It has all of the key elements there. The first thing that I'm going to do is make sure that instead of live, this is on design. That way I can do the coding and design work at once and not have to worry about switching back and forth. As you can see, when you click on each of these tabs now at the top of the page, it'll take you to different areas of the code. And that's what we want to do because we're going to link these to separate places. So, for example, when we click on home, what we're going to do is link this to the index site. So at the bottom of the page, you'll see many fields down here. What we're worried about is link. So go ahead and click in the link box, and then click on the folder that's to the right of this that says Browse for File. Click on Browse for File, and then this is still in that untitled folder, and we're just going to link this back to this index.html. That way the home page will link back to the site itself. So we're just going to double click that and upload that into the link space. For the rest of these, we don't have anything to link to right now, but we will. So for each of these, we're just going to go through and label them their label.html. So for example, for about, we'll label it about.html. For alignment, we'll do the same thing, alignment.html. What this is going to do is it'll provide us with the ability to link each of these different navigational features to their respective pages when the time comes. So go ahead and do these last few here. Finish contrast.html. We'll do repetition.html. And then the last one is typeface.html. Once we finish that, what we're going to need to do is save this for the particular web page in order to link it. What we're going to do is File, Save As, and then save this as index.html in the untitled folder. So just click Save, and it'll say that this file already exists, and you can go ahead and click Replace because you do want to replace it. So go ahead and do that. And so that's all we need to do for this right now. What we're going to do next is actually create some information in order so you can see how to link these different elements together. So I'm going to go back into Photoshop. I'm going to minimize DreamWeaver and go back into Photoshop. And then what I'm actually going to do is just take my select tool and I'm just going to delete some of these layers. So I'm going to leave the document design, but I'm actually going to delete the bottom con, which is the welcome, the information that I have about the web page, and the services. So we have kind of a blank canvas here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a new page that provides the information about this website. So I'm going to go up to Layer, New Layer. I'm going to name this one About. And in this, I'm just going to create a new text box. Just something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. Next, we're going to put in some information about the website itself. This is going to provide information for your users in order to explain to them what the purposes of this website are for. I've already copied some information to just paste in here to make this go a little bit faster so I don't have to type, but this is where you would include any information you would like to provide about your particular website. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste some information in here just like that. And this isn't very long, but this is just an example of something that you can do in order to create an about page for your particular website. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the select tool so that I get out of the text box. And then what I'm going to do is go up to File and Save for Web. And we're going to save this again for the website. So instead of doing index.html, we're actually going to do an about.html. So you can save all this information as it is. Go ahead and click Save. Make sure you're in the untitled folder that you created, and instead of index.html, I'm going to type in about.html because this is the About page that your About tab will link to when it's clicked on. Again, make sure that the format is in HTML and images, and then go ahead and click Save. If this Replace Files comes up, that's fine. Just go ahead and click Replace. You'll be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize Photoshop again and open up DreamWeaver. And in DreamWeaver, I'm actually going to open up a new page. I'm going to go to File, Open, and from this, I'm going to click on the About.html that I just created. And that's going to open up a new tab at the top here. So you can see that you have index.html and about.html. What we're going to do is go through and link all of these tabs again. So for home, we're going to link this to the index one more time. For the about, we're actually going to link this to the about.html. And then for the alignment and proximity, white space, etc., we're just going to do the same that we did before on the previous tab, which is the name of the link plus .html. So alignment.html, proximity.html, etc. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on each of these to make sure that I get all of them done. And the last one is typeface, so I'm just going to finish that up. Okay, and that's all we need to do for this particular page. I'm going to go back to the index.html and make sure that each of these lines up again with what they need to. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Home. And the About, I'm going to go ahead and link to the About page as well. Other than that, everything else should be good to go. So what we're going to do is go ahead and do File, Save As again, and save this as index.html. Go ahead and click Save and click Replace again. And this is all you'll need to do in order to link these particular texts. What you'll want to do is go back into Photoshop, create each individual page as you would. So for instance, you'd create a page on alignment, proximity, white space, etc. I'd give descriptions on these items, and then I would go back into DreamWeaver, do File, Open, and then link all of the individual texts. What this will do, hopefully, is provide a live website that can be navigated through completely. As an example, I'm going to go ahead and minimize DreamWeaver and open up the untitled folder where all of my information is saved. I'm actually going to go ahead and double click this index.html, which will open up this certain web page in my browser. So as you can see, this is what my HTML site looks like after I have uploaded it into DreamWeaver. You can click on each of the individual tabs. The alignment, proximity, whitespace, contrast, repetition, and typeface won't do anything. However, when you click on About, it'll take you to the About page, and when you click on Home, it'll take you to the Home page. This will allow you to navigate throughout all of the different elements of your web page. In order to finish this website, all you need to do is go back into Photoshop, create different web pages for each of your different tabs, and then link them back into DreamWeaver. Otherwise, that is how you upload a layout from Photoshop into DreamWeaver.